Welcome for joining this morning. We're just waiting for a few more people to join. Hi, Maria, I can hear you. Do you mind turning your...
Your voice was not clear. You don't appreciate, or you appreciate.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. Welcome, everyone. We're just waiting one more minute. Hey, Maria, can you mute yourself? Thank you. Perfect. I just saw it. Nice to see you all this early morning or early evening, wherever you are. I give it maybe one more minute and then we start the session today. But nice seeing you all here. I hope you're all doing well. What we would like to maybe find out is, could you tell us in the chat from what part of the world you're calling in today? That would be super nice to find out where people are at. What we always do at CMS in Touch, try and make it an okay time for different time zones. So I think that would also help us then if you feel like, oof, maybe another time would work better for you. And we do have also, we live tweeting a bit. So if you love Twitter, be my guest. Thank you. So UK, Brighton, nice. Australia, Melbourne. Well, I'm sure it's nice and sunny over there. Brisbane. We have someone from Boston, super nice. From Essex in the UK. Maybe I should write where I'm based. Welcome, everyone. Okay, so we give it a few more minutes. And we have someone, hi Kirti from India, Joyce also in the US, so quite different time zones. So thank you for joining us today. So those of you who are not so familiar with CMS in Touch, Sophie is from France, so Europe is definitely representative here as well. So thank you for joining CMS in Touch webinar today. My name is Frederica. I'm based in Tilburg University, but I live in Belgium, so across the border. And I do research also on disability and management. So I contributed to this book today. So I'm super excited about this event. So congratulations both of you for publishing it just 2 days ago officially. Now CMS in Touch is an initiative by the Academy of Management CMS in Touch division and by organization, the journal. So they kindly sponsoring us to organize these brilliant events around, critical discussion in management and organization. And today we have a new kind of series called Hot Off the Press series. So here we really want to have discussion conversations about the latest publications within the field. So today, of course, we have this book launch, but we also do events around special issues and other publications. So feel free to reach out to us if this is something you're interested in. But today, of course, we look at this amazing book, which is co-edited by Joy Betty, Sophie Hennekam, and Mukta Kulkarni. So also a nice female author team, which is brilliant. And Sophie is here, and we have a special guest as well. Joy was also able to come in. So both of them will talk a bit about the book, what it is about. And what they ask would be, because we're not such a big group, maybe if everyone could speak up. You don't have to turn your camera on if it's not good for you, but if you could turn it on, that would be brilliant, just to say where you're based, maybe your background, and what you would like to gain out of this event. What would you like to learn? And then that can incorporate some of these also within our discussion. So I already said a bit more about me. So I do a lot of research around disability, but also about individuals with a burnout, not classified as disability. And I look also in kind of new technology, what the impact is on organizations, in particular on employees. that's a bit my background. What I would like to gain out of it, well, I helped write this book, but I haven't read it fully yet. So I also want to learn a bit more about the process on writing a book. You know, I'm interested in doing this myself, and maybe kind of some tips and tricks, what we can learn from that experience. Maybe I hand over to I know there's a few Sarahs here, but the original Sarah Persson, maybe introduce yourself briefly.
Hi everyone, I'm Sarah Persson. I'm based in Stockholm. I work at Södertörn University. I really look forward to the discussions today. I do not do research in relation to this field, but I'm very interested to hear about the book and to read it later. So, and also like Frederica, to learn about the process of how it came together.
Thank you, Sarah. I will just move randomly on. Ren, is that how you pronounce it?
It is. Hi, good morning.
Hi, good morning.
I am based in Boston. I am an incoming PhD student at the University of Massachusetts, Boston, into their business administrations program. The track I was admitted into is organizations and social change. I am legally blind and dynamically disabled, so disability and intersectionality are going to be my areas of research. And so I was really excited to see that this book was coming out. Thanks for having me.
Thank you, and good luck with going into your PhD. Thank you. Then I have Steph. Is that how you pronounce it? Sorry, Steph.
Yes, Steve. Yes, thank you,
Steve.
Frederica. Yeah, Steve. Yes, so I'm from the Gruyter Publishers. I'm the editor responsible for the book and the handbook series, which is published. We launched the series a couple of years ago. And I first started talking to Joy and Sophie and Mukta, I don't know, 2-3 years ago, I think it was. So I was really excited when they came with the idea for the handbook. It's such an important topic that we felt it would really complement the other books that we were signing. So we're delighted to have reached this stage and to have published the book this week.
Well, thank you for joining us. So I'm sure if people want to reach out and also publish with you, I'm sure now they have a name. So
yes,
thank
please.
you for that. Thank you. Maria, where are you calling in from?
Yes, hello everyone. I'm Maria Khan, and I am calling in from Brisbane, Australia. It's evening here, so good evening, everyone, actually. I am a PhD student, the final year of my PhD, and I actually had the opportunity to be involved and contributed to the book chapter as well. That was a coincidence, really, because the team that I was working on, somebody was invited and they asked me to contribute. I've been working in the field since then on different research projects, so I'm quite excited to sort of see how it all comes together and the different chapters in the book. So that's it from me.
Thank you, Maria. That's, I think, usually how it goes, right? Somebody knows someone and then that you get included. So I'm glad that you had the great experience. Then we have Manuel joining us.
It's me. Yeah. Hello, everyone. So I'm Emmanuel. I'm currently from La Trobe University, but I'm changing. I'm going to a new job at RMIT in Melbourne. I'm a senior research fellow. I will be a senior research fellow there. I'm French, by the way. And I'm working on neurodiversity and inclusion of autistic workers. And so I was recently in touch with Sophie. So yeah, that's what I'm doing.
Yes, thank you. Definitely super important topic. So look forward to having a look at your work. So thank you for joining us this morning. Then we have, I'm just starting from the left, Ilaria, you're on my left corner.
Hello, everyone. My name is Ilaria. I am a professor in management and marketing in the UK at the University of Essex. And my research is around inclusivity, or the lack thereof, usually, And I have the privilege to be teaching a doctoral course to a group of students who are in Italy, and I know a couple are here, and they study disability through the lens of law, media, philosophy, business, sociology. So they study a lot of different aspects around disability. And when I saw your book, I thought, wow, this is so timely and amazing. So I know some of them won't be able to be here today, but they might look at the recording afterwards. So thank you so much for this.
Yeah, that's lovely to hear. So maybe you can use that as your reading material for them. Definitely. Then we have, I can see Domenico. I think that's one of your students, right, Ilaria? Do you mind sharing your interest in this event if you're here?
Good morning. Sorry, but I have some issues with the connection, so better if I don't turn on the camera. But yeah, of course, I'm a research fellow at Scuola Superiore Meridionale in Naples, Italy. And yeah, I knew about this event through Ilaria. And she's teaching in my research area. Of course, our research is about law and organizational studies for people with disability. So this book is absolutely interesting for me and for the area. So I'm looking forward to hear.
Yes, thanks for joining us from Italy, Domenico, and don't worry about the camera. Do let us know. It will be recorded in case you drop out, so hopefully that's not the case, but thank you for that. Then I have another Sarah here, and I think it's the same link that Sarah sent. I don't know who's behind the camera there though. Maybe there's two people, I don't know the name unfortunately. Maybe you want to quickly speak up, and if not, we just hand over the floor to Sophie. I'm just checking in the chat. I think Kirti, yeah, that might be Kirti, who is also part of CMS in Dutch. Kirti, do you mind introducing yourself? I think. Okay, I think there was a connection issue. So we will get back to her once she rejoins. But I'm so happy to hand over the floor to you, Sophie. And of course, Joy, you're also here as well. And the idea is that because we're such a small group, it would be just nice if you have a question during her kind of presentation, just put your hands up, and then we can have a discussion. So it's a nice and friendly environment. So the floor is to you, Sophie.
Okay, excellent. So I've put on the slides I'll be using. So first of all, a big thank you, Frederike and the whole team for organizing this event, which is a very first one for us. So this is so it's the book we're presenting. It's the Gruyter Handbook of Disability and Management, and as Frederike already explained, we are three editors here: Joy, who's here today, Mukta, who cannot be here given the time zone difference there is, and finally myself. Yes, there we go. So here you can briefly see who we are. We were lucky to be working with Steve Hartman, that already introduced himself briefly. And we will talk a little bit about the process, of course, of how this book started and what we learned from it. I also added here the table of contents, which might be helpful for those who don't have the book yet. So it is organized in several parts. We start by kind of framing the discussion to really say, okay, what is disability, what is included here, what is excluded, what is visible, invisible, etc. What does the future look like, etc. Second part, and which Ren already brought up, said, hey, I'm really interested in this idea of intersectionality, which obviously is a really big topic and very important. So several authors here wrote about this. For example, the intersection of disability and age, also the role of COVID and how, well, the impact of COVID wasn't the same for various subgroups of disabled individuals. We also look at concealable identities here. And then the third part here is the social reactions to disability. So here we can look at what managers and co-workers think about people with disabilities, how they react to this. So that's quite an important point as well. Part 4 is about the context. So more and more we see the need for really contextually sensitive research that doesn't just put it in a small context section somewhere, but really says, okay, how is this particular context impacting the way disability is experienced, how you navigate the workplace, for example. So we have issues here like organizational culture, but also various types of employment contexts, such as the sheltered employment. And then we have part 5, which is, I don't know if you can see it, because it's all pretty small, I have to say. It's about expanding disability definitions. So here we have, for example, Maria Kahn's chapter, who is here today. We're really lucky to have you. So don't hesitate also if you would like to speak up and share your experiences as an author of the book. That would be really nice. So she's talking here, for example, about neurodiversity. We have Federica's chapter here. She has several in which she talks about the issue of burnout. And we have Joy, who also co-authored a chapter with Ramona Petzold, who talk about this idea of saneism. And finally, we have research and practice, because although this is a scholarly handbook, we also want to have some practical recommendations, and we believe in the collaboration between research and practice in order to move the field forward. So we have a few chapters here as well of initiatives that have been launched in order to create maybe more inclusive recruitment processes, for example, or tools that help people to decide whether they should disclose or not their disability in the context of work. So these are the kinds of topics that we have together with Mukta and Joy. We clustered around those different topics. So if you've got any questions, please don't hesitate to let us know. I'm happy to answer the questions. So quite a few of you expressed interest to know a little bit more about the process. And I agree that it's interesting to see, because often we don't really know. For me, it's the first time I go edit a book. So it was a first experience, and also a very positive experience. Way more positive than I expected, because lots of people did tell me it would be, it's a daunting, a long process, but I found it really rewarding. So to start, the real idea came from Joy. She was the one starting this idea when we talked about something related to diversity. It wasn't immediately disability, and we started to look a little bit about what has been done, what has not been done, where there were gaps in our body of knowledge, in the different books that exist already. And initially, we wanted to focus on something a bit cross-cultural, saying, okay, we know lots of research on diversity, on disability has been done in Western countries, and we actively wanted to provide a more cross-cultural perspective here. However, we were thinking about attracting people from various parts of the world, and we noticed how difficult this was. because obviously you're using your own network and then snowballing, as some people said. I got asked, one of the people who contacted, to be part of the book. Well, we noticed it was really difficult. We struggled to find people from South America, for example, from Africa as well. And at a certain moment, we realized that we wouldn't be able to provide a truly cross-cultural perspective. And therefore we said, okay, we're going to really focus on something that's on the cusp of management on the one hand, disability studies, that is often quite separate from it. We wanted to integrate those various insights and experiences and lenses and approaches that we have with different disciplines, and that often aren't really integrated, and therefore we don't necessarily know what is going on in other fields. Well, it's so important if we really want to improve, sorry. So we really want to have this interdisciplinary perspective, and we have, for example, people from law that provide a really different perspective on disability and management. So we did encounter some challenges on the way, especially attracting scholars, as I said, from various, especially understudied areas of the world. But overall, it has been an extremely rewarding and I would say easy experience. And I would say there are several reasons for this. So if you have an idea for a book, obviously you start writing. You start writing up your idea in the light of, well, existing books that are already out there. And then secondly, what is it that you're adding? Are you legitimate to write about this? I personally felt not so legitimate, to be honest, but I was lucky enough to have two co-authors that are really well established in the field. So that definitely helped. We encountered a lot of enthusiasm for the project, I have to say. First of all, from Steve Hartman, of course, who have been extremely supportive and helpful with constructive feedback and ongoing support. That has been very positive. And second, when we started to reach out to our respective networks, it was great to see that almost everyone said yes. And I think this is something, I'm not sure if this is something that's normal, or if we were really lucky, or if this is just a really great bunch of scholars. I don't know, but people were really enthusiastic and they delivered. So many really well-known scholars said, yeah, sure, I'm really happy to contribute. They had a wide variety of ideas to write a chapter, so that helped us to see all the different kind of subtopics that we would have liked to cover in the book. So naturally, all the different topics or themes we wanted to include were naturally included. So that was really nice. And finally, in terms of the quality of the chapters, we decided to be quite selective because we wanted really to create a good book, which is a tricky issue, if you like, because we have we first of all, of course, reached out to scholars to write a chapter for us. They agreed, but we did reject some chapters along the way. So we reviewed, when the chapters came in, we reviewed them, all three of us, and then we got together in order to decide how to proceed. And most of the time, well, it's like a review process for an academic article. There was a first round of revision and basically a second round of revision for many of them. But some of them also got rejected. So that's tough because you have a relationship sometimes with those individuals. You know them, you don't want to hurt them, but on the other hand, you want to guarantee the quality of the book. So that's maybe a challenge that, well, that could make us feel uncomfortable, but on the other hand, well, we were there to guide them, to help them if they weren't reactive to the feedback we provided. well, we couldn't accept the chapter. So overall, a really good collaboration on all levels with the editor, between the three co-editors, and finally with the authors who in general have been able to commit to send the chapters on time, to revise it on time, etc. So overall, I think the communication has been extremely positive here, and I think Joy can confirm this. Okay, any questions?
Yes, and actually, yeah,
process?
Frederica has her hand raised.
Okay,
Yes.
I can't see that, I'm sorry.
No worries, no worries. Yeah, I just had a question about how long did that from starting off with the idea to do the book towards actually the publication take? Because I think that's a question a lot of people may have.
That's actually a very good question. And when Steve or Jay mentioned that, Steve mentioned, I think we got in touch 3 years ago. I was like, is it 3 years ago? Is it 3 years ago? I can't remember. When did we start?
I think so.
It was before the pandemic, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Everything blurs, yeah.
It's, yeah, exactly. I wouldn't be able to actually give it a timeline. But yeah, it does take time, of course. It is a long process. And there is...
So Sophie, could I jump in from the publisher's perspective? Just to sort of work things backwards. From the time we receive the complete and final manuscript from the editors, it takes about 6 or 7 months to actually get the book physically published. Working back from that, we've signed, I think in this series, about 20 handbooks so far. And these are quite big projects, and I think it's quite difficult to expect to get the writing and the editing done in anything less than 18 months. I think most of the projects that we've signed are sort of between 18 months and a couple of years in terms of for the editors to get the contributions, to review them, to get everything into shape. So from the time a first conversation starts, you're probably looking at about 2.5 years or so to 3 years till the book's published, which is more or less what happened here, I think.
Absolutely.
Yeah, we signed our contract with the Gruyter on February 9, 2021. And of course, we had to do the work to get to the contract stage. So sometime in 2020, I guess we probably were in the serious discussions around, who's going to be involved. There was quite some discussion about co-editors because I wasn't sure about co-editors. Like Sophie, I've heard stories about people working on collaborative projects where things go off the rails, and so it's really important that you get good collaborators that you can work well with and whom you trust, and both Sophie and Mukta are so responsible. I mean, I think that probably made us go a little bit faster because you didn't feel like you were having to chase people down. And people stayed on task.
Yeah. So exactly. What we can learn from that is pick the right people you want to do a book with.
Yes. I've got the slide here. I feel like it's at the end, I think. No, yeah, here. It's about if you want to edit a book. Indeed, I think there's, of course, collaborate with great co-editors. That's definitely one. Probably, I already worked with Joy before on a special issue. Not with Mukta, but you have worked with Joy. Had worked with her before, so it's indeed it's a question of trust and knowing that people deliver, that you can count on them. So I think that's really important. But it's the same for the authors, I would say. I mean, when you know the authors, and I think this disability space is rather small. At a certain stage, everyone knows everyone. So you also know who you can count on. You know who is going to deliver. And I was personally really surprised, happily surprised by the quality of the chapters, especially as we all know that sometimes people say, okay, this cannot become an article, therefore I'll transform it into a chapter as if it's really the last resort outlet for our work. And I felt that people really here saw the added value of the book and wanted to contribute something good. And that's also something that sometimes you hear isn't working out so well. So having great editors, having a great publisher, and then having a network of people you can you can ask, and they can ask other people. It's a snowball principle here again. And also I would like to add, and I don't know whether Joy feels the same about it, but I would say that it's really important to either publish or edit or whatever a book for the right reasons. I mean, this is not, as Steve outlined as well, this is something that takes 2 years, 3 years. It asks for a long-term commitment. So you really have to want it. It's not for a quick, it's not for the glamour or something. You do this because you believe in it. And if you don't really believe in your own book or in the own idea or the importance of the topic you're working on, it's not, you will not be able to give this the time it needs, because it is time consuming, always more than we hope. So make sure that you were intrinsically motivated and that you really believe in it, because otherwise I think you will see it in the quality of the book. For example, when we were working on the introductory chapter with Joy and Mukta, we told ourselves not to be lazy, to take a few weeks to really think about what can we learn collectively from all the different chapters that we've seen. How can we structure this to advance the field? And I think that was a really good idea, because we can all write up a quick, quick introductions or conclusions that are not innovative, that are not novel, that are not really inspiring. So I think that if you decide to publish or edit a book for the right reasons, you don't get those lazy ideas, but you really try to think hard about what we add to the field of disability and management.
Yeah, lovely said, Sophie. And what I also like with a book, I'm old school. I like it in front of me. I like a tangible object I can, read through. So I'm still so in favor of having the original in front of me. We have 2 questions there just before you move on.
Go ahead.
One question in the chat by Paya was, how much larger is a handbook compared to a 60,000 word edit book? So how many? Maybe Steve can jump in.
Yeah, that's a good question. When we print a book at De Gruyter, we're typically about 400 words to the printed page. It can be a bit more, but if you're talking about a 60,000 word book, a monograph, for example, that will be about 150 pages. The handbooks that we publish are typically in the range of about 400 to 600 pages. So I'm frantically trying to do some mental arithmetic here. So I think it will be like about 160,000 to 200,000+ words. So they're significantly longer. With a handbook, you typically see around, Sophie very clearly outlined the structure of the book. I can't recall exactly how many chapters, but you typically see around 25 chapters. That's possibly double what you would expect to see in a monograph.
Okay, thank you, Steve. And then Ren also asked, Sophie, do you mind sharing the slides afterwards?
Yeah, sure, of course, no problem.
Okay.
I sent Ren the slides, because if she's using a screen reader, she might want it now. So she's got it, but other people might need it as well.
Yes, so do let us know, but we will share it with everyone. We got your contacts. Thank you. Okay, over to you, Sophie.
Okay, cool. So there we go. So as I said, it's important to do it for the right reasons, and what the right reason is of course up to you. But for us, the overall aims was really to enhance the understanding of disability, because it's a topic that of course touches upon a large percentage of the world's population, and still there is much to learn still from how they navigate their lives and the world of work especially. So we wanted to have, despite it being a scholarly book, to have some practical implications, to really add also something to, well, to their lives, to improve basically their experiences at work by providing new insights, learning about new tools, providing novel perspectives, etc. And finally, as we said, well, learn about other disciplines, providing this interdisciplinary perspective, so that, as Frederike was saying, we can find lots of information online, but sometimes having a book, especially in paper, being able to just open it and see, hey, this is something here on this perspective that I really know, where it integrated automatically can be very helpful. So it was really enhancing the understanding, providing this interdisciplinary perspective, and then hopefully through these insights and the knowledge it generated, improve their experiences. So what are the main takeaways of this book? So we kind of structured it again, like we structured our table of contents. Well, here we structured it along 4 axes that I will develop a little bit, each of them. So the first one is about ableist norms and assumptions, and we believe they need to be challenged. The second is that collectively, so these are really the collective lessons that we can draw from the various chapters. So this is really what was done at the end, of course. So the second one is about anti-discrimination legislation and why this is not enough to protect and include individuals with disabilities. Finally, it's the question about how to conceptualize it. We have, for example, Maria here, who is working on neurodiversity, Emmanuel as well. So this is definitely a hot topic, and there are multiple chapters in our book that talk about this. And finally, what are the lessons to be learned of social material structure? So these were those 4 main topics. So let's discuss them in a bit more detail. So the first one was about those ableist norms and assumptions that are still prevailing in today's neoliberal society. So we often have, lots of research still focuses on the medical perspective of disability, where we're going to say that it's a deficit, it's a problem that people need to deal with. And we saw that there are several chapters that really focus on positive aspects of having a disability, that we have their particularities, unique strength that those individuals can draw on, and that are positive for individuals themselves, but also for organizations, employers, and co-workers. So there are chapters, for example, that use a person job fit lens. Others are using a strength-based perspective, so really seeing it as something positive, and how they can harness it, they can draw on this, they can capitalize on it, rather than seeing it as a problem that needs to be dealt with. We also see ableist norms, or in many of our chapters, the more neurotypical norms, if we talk about neurodiversity here, that leads to the exclusion, of course, of neurodiverse or disabled individuals. So we really see that it's still there. It still needs a lot of work. It needs to be changed. And we specifically asked the authors as well at the end to say, okay, have a section which may be more practitioner oriented, to say, what can we do about this? So overall, really, we see many chapters that say we need to focus on abilities rather than the impairment of the disabilities, which of course aligns with the social model of disability. Which is an important lesson. It's an ongoing area in which lots of improvement still needs to be made, of course. The second one is about a little bit the labor market participation of individuals with disabilities. we were lucky to have some really experts on the legal aspect here. And it's really anti-discrimination legislation, of course, is necessary. It's a good thing, but it's only a starting point. So we know that the employment rates are still very low. So there more needs to be done here. And as I said, in the table of contents, there is this section on social reactions to disability, where we also, well, we see that sometimes legislation can backfire. It can lead to resistance. It can lead to beliefs of favoritism, injustice, fairness perceptions amongst co-workers, and resistance from managers here. But we also see that there is a lack of data, basically, to really determine how effective those new legislation actually is. So we say, okay, it's important, but we don't really have enough data here. So it also raises well, some methodological issues here in terms of saying, okay, legislation is important, but it's definitely not enough. And the attitudes and beliefs and stereotypical beliefs very often, of course, of co-workers, of managers, of society in general, are extremely important to move this forward. So it's just a prerequisite, if you like, but it's not enough. So that's what our chapters were well, showing as well. And then this idea of conceptualizing disability. So I think this is actually a really important point as well. And I've been recently starting to wonder really about this threshold of when is someone considered to be disabled, when you're not, when you're no longer, also when people get better about the fluctuating nature, or at least the symptoms of certain disabilities, what is included, what is excluded, on which grounds, how fair is this? So these are all really tricky questions, and some of our chapters talk about the temporal nature of disability, of the fluctuating natures, about how visible or invisible, concealable or unconcealable it might be, and how this all influences the way people navigate the workplace, but also how they are being perceived by others. For example, if you're good one day and not so good the other day, well, obviously people are going to say, is she really ill? What's really up with this person? You were good yesterday, how come you're not today? So these are really tricky questions that I think need a lot more work in order to provide a finer perspective on managing disability in the workplace today, because we tend to position disabled workers sometimes as a very homogeneous group. Of course, we know there are many differences between physical, mental, okay, but there are way finer, well, we need a real fine analysis here of what's going on, and it's why we also have this section on not only intersectionality, but also the context, because all these multi-level factors, they basically influence how disability is perceived, how it is defined, and how it is treated. Well, this needs more work, and our book provides some really interesting avenues for future research in this regard. Neurodiversity is a topic that came up quite often, so this is I would say a hot topic, and Maya Khan has written a really nice article at Group and Organization Management recently that really well states it very nicely. And then, of course, the intersection. So yes, ethnicity and disability, age and disability are topics that are included in our handbook, but there are obviously many more that need to be, that need more research, but that are really important to take into account. And then finally, the intersection of technology, organization, and work, or in other words, those social material structures. So these are important as well. We have some really cool articles on technology, assistive technology, or just technological tools. So we have this online tool related to disclosure, this online outreach and recruitment, for example. So once again, we believe this is an area where more research is needed, where there are exciting opportunities to learn more, and also exciting opportunities to really create a more inclusive workplace for individuals with disabilities. So it's not only about technology, it's about the way the work is organized, HR processes, structures, and practices in order to make them more inclusive. And there have recently been a few important special issues also about this topic. So this is another area that we feel is especially promising here in order to, well, really move the field forward and provide better, well, enhance the work experiences of individuals with disabilities.
And Sophie, this might be a good place to,
yeah,
to mention you have a special issue coming with papers due this October that's related to neurodiversity, and this might be a good
yes.
audience to let them know.
Yes, that's right. Thank you, Joy. Yes, I'm co-editing again, huh? Guest editing, I should say, a special issue on HRM and neurodiversity, together with Sabrina Volpone, who is one of our, who is another author of this book, and Alison Pullen. So it's at HRM, so Human Resource Management, the US journal, and the deadline, I think, is the 23rd of October. So this year. So if there's any interest on your side on neurodiversity, you're more than welcome to contact me, Sabrina, or Alison. And the call for papers is online. So it's called Neurodiversity and HRM. Thank you. Other questions? I can see. Yeah, thank you for the.
I have, I guess, a question about this pertaining, yes. Admittedly, a lot of my research has been in the US, and I focus primarily on the healthcare sector, but human resources is intrinsically created, and their primary goal is to protect the compliance and health of an organization. And that is sometimes in direct conflict with inclusive practices. And I wonder if that's something that you touch on at all. I actually feel my personal feelings about it, and I need to do more research on it, to be quite honest, is just that accessibility, access needs, individual accommodation should actually be separate from human resources, but that's, I feel they often do harm. So I don't think that's their intention, but I do think that that's the outcome in many cases. And I'm wondering if you touch on that at all.
Yeah, I see. It's a really good question. And I think when we talk about diversity in general, more broadly, we often say it's not an HR issue, it's a strategy issue. It's something that goes throughout an organization. Because if you leave it up to HR, yes, you might indeed end up with something that sounds really inclusive, but it isn't really inclusive after all. And I think this is also why we're saying that legislation is a good starting point, but it's definitely not enough. So yeah, I think this is also why the book is not called Disability and HRM, but just management more broadly, because it's not necessarily something that HR needs to focus on. I would say that, yeah, the book does, there are some chapters on more innovative tools, for example, that really try to enhance inclusion here. it doesn't then say much about where this comes from an organizational point of view, but I think we really show the need for multi-level support for real inclusion of individuals with disabilities. So it's the more legal societal structures here. So it's about societal beliefs about individuals, but also legislation. Then we have the more organizational level where we look at organizational culture, for example, HR policies and practices that play a role here. And then we have the more individual level, so how individuals, individual coping mechanisms, for example, intersectionality on individual level, that all influences their experiences. So I think what the book really shows is that we need to look at the intersection between those layers and how they all, really interact with each other, influencing how people experience the world of work today. But there's no specific chapter that says HR is maybe not is not playing, is not inclusive of individuals with disabilities here. Joy, would you like to add something?
Yeah, I think I hope Ren ends up writing that up as a paper or a chapter somewhere, that HRM often gets in the way. HRM, people in human resources do have a compliance mindset, because I think that's their primary duty, as you said, to protect the organization. And I also think disability awareness and inclusion practices they're just not well known. So there's work for all of us to do here in the disability research community to be advocates and let people increase awareness. I was looking at the book, the chapter by Catherine Moore talks about the state of laws and how laws are helping or not. So that might be a place to start. And she's a lawyer, so she's one of the examples of articles we got that really came from a different perspective. She'd written it up like a law article. Ren, there's definitely space for this in the field to offer a critique. And I think people who work in HR would be happy to do better if they knew what to do. Keeping in mind that they're often overstretched and overworked and kind of serving too many masters. So, all right, I'll stop because other people have questions.
Thank you.
Thank you, Joy. Definitely.
All right, so
Yeah,
I
don't know.
see Steve and Frederica.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
does it matter who goes first?
No, I don't mind, Steve. Maybe I can just add on the HR because I'm in an HR
Sure,
department.
Yeah.
So we do look in inclusive HRM there, and I think the problem with HRM is it's as Sophie said, it's more compliance based, and it's more based on what senior management tells HR to do. So they also have to follow certain rules, but I think it's easy to demand diversity, so you can maybe make the entrance easier for individuals, but I think it's much harder to have this inclusive mindset in changing culture, organizational culture. And I think that's where it's a lot of hindering the idea of belonging for individuals and to feel integrated in the organization. I feel that's much more harder to say. And I think because I've written two chapters for the book, and I think my idea was very much to state that, well, we focus on it's an individual problem, right? Having something that you bring to the workplace and you need to figure out how to work with the set structures. But what we argue is very much to look at what you bring to the organization in a positive sense, and then we can reshape how things are happening, maybe with your job design. How can we fix the job better so you are able to use your abilities? And I think there is a lot of things happening in HRM, and how we have to be more inclusive, but I think it's very much, that's my interpretation. It really depends on the situation and the person, and we cannot make it kind of, the policies don't apply to everyone. If, for instance, assistive technology, I had a manager saying that we thought we put the person in a separate room because it has accessible entrance, but then actually they excluded them from the people that were in the first floor in the restaurant, but there was only a service lift up, so there was no access to that room. So I think they try to be inclusive, but they don't ask the person what their needs are. And I think that's what we maybe need to focus on. But yeah, that's just my interpretation. But I see we have many other hands up now. So Steve, you were next, I think.
Yeah, thanks, Frederica. I wanted to thank Sophie for a great presentation. It really is. And I've got 5 points I wanted to make, but I'll make them very quickly. So from a publishing perspective, I know at one point Sophie spoke about different perspectives. And I think that's really important in a handbook, where you are, this is a big piece of work. It's so important to have different perspectives included. Just to go back to the timing issue, it's also what's very important is the time to develop the idea. And I think Joy alluded to this earlier on, and Sophie, that it can take several months for the discussions between the editors and the publisher. And then when the proposal's prepared, it goes out for peer review. So it can take several months to, to really get that into shape. Sophie said that I think almost everyone said yes in terms of contributors, which is a great situation. That isn't always the case. And I think with edited books, monographs, handbooks, I think editors often have to allow, if you want 20 chapters, you may have to go to 25 or 30 people, so I think you need to sort of overcompensate for that. It's also, it's stating the obvious here, but it's very important that the editors work together well, that there's some chemistry there, that they understand each other. That's very important, and this was definitely the case here. And finally, and Sophie said, do it because you believe in it 100%. You have to be committed to the project. So there's my points. Thank you.
Yes, thanks, Steve. Very important. I can see that I got a hint that we're almost out of time, but if people want to still remain for a few minutes, of course, that's fine. Ilaria, you had a question or comment?
Yes, no, but I'm really happy for colleagues to finish, because it was just, interesting points around the temporality and the lack of homogeneous experience. But no, please do finish, because it's very interesting.
Okay, thank you. I'll be really fast because there are only 2 slides left. It's nothing. So what I learned, I would say it's really, Steve mentioned this again, but yeah, I would like to reinforce really the need for different perspective, different angles, because we really approach things in different ways. And Joy mentioned Catherine Moore's article, who's a lawyer, and indeed we were, okay, how do we review this chapter? It's so different from what we're used to. But on the other hand, it's so important to include it instead of discarding it because you are maybe unfamiliar with this. You should embrace this, because this is where real learning actually occurs. And the second point I would like to make here is indeed it's the need, and many of our authors were also stressing this and actually did this in their chapters in the empirical work. They report on the need to work with practitioners and also with individuals with disabilities themselves. So I think these are really, for me, were the main takeaways here for me. And then to finish, we will have time for some questions. Implications for practitioners. Well, this is obviously far too small, basically, but yes, it's everything we already mentioned a little bit, HR practices and processes, how to make that work, as Ren nicely outlined. And maybe one idea here is this idea of universal design principles that are not necessarily process or practice for disabled individuals, but for everyone, and it makes things easier. As an example is, for example, explicit communication. Explicit communication is not just helpful for individuals with autism, but is something that everyone tends to appreciate, and not positioning it as something for the autistic community makes it less stigmatizing. And actually, these are sometimes small adaptations that work for everyone. So I think this is maybe something that would be very helpful for management in general. Then, of course, we see technology and how what an exciting way also this is to, well, use this and make the workplace more inclusive. And finally, of course, organizational culture, as we said, just the compliance spirit of HR, just having certain practices in place without really this inclusive culture is not going to work. And Frederike touched upon this as well. And then to finish, where do we go from here? Yeah, if we want to be inclusive, well, we have to give voice to those that we study. So really doing research with people with disabilities, not on them, not thinking that we know better what they are experiencing. It's really important. I would say there are many exciting opportunities in terms of methodology here. So we need more multi-level studies, we need case studies, ethnographic case studies if possible, more practice-based reviews, observations. I mean, I would say we need to dare to step out of our comfort zone, think beyond the normal frames we tend to use, because just with interdisciplinary points of view, this is also where we really get new and different insights. So I would definitely encourage this. Then maybe more work on transitions, different employment contexts. We feel there was really a gap here when they transition from school to work, for example, but also in and out the labor market, from sheltered employment to the mainstream sector, these kind of things. And finally, as Joy and I and we tried to in the beginning create, more cross-cultural perspective. There's understudied areas in the world that really need more attention. We hope that we can maybe incite research, have scholars in those areas to start working on this, maybe with the help of more established scholars in Western countries, because really we feel more is needed here too. Thank you so much for your attention. I tried to be really fast.
Thank you so much, Sophie, also Joy, also Steve for joining us today from the publisher perspective. Do we have any maybe remaining questions, comments, anything you would like to add? This is your last few minutes counting down. If not, as I said, we're happy to share with you the slides, and if everyone's fine with, we can of course also add the contact details, so you can get in touch with everyone as well. Steve also shared his. Maybe we can add that to the slides as well, Steve, and then people have it also a bit more in a compact format. So thank you for that. Are there any questions before I know the slide change behind me now? Are there any comments or questions before I just share with you that we have other fun events as well? Not saying that this wasn't fun enough, Sophie. I think it was really nice. And actually the nice group also made it a bit more, I don't know, I felt very homey and able to speak up. So I hope you all enjoyed this event as well as us. So thanks a lot for that. And yeah, good luck with the book, of course. I will be using it for sure. And also Ilaria, I bet, for her studies. But if there are no other questions, now the slide can come back behind me. Laura, that's a behind the scene person. I briefly share with you what's coming up next. And I think that might be also interesting for you, because you also talked about different methodologies, right? So we have Sarah from Pearson from our CMS in Touch group. She is working with many brilliant scholars, as you can see on the right, on a special issue in culture and organization. And they're interested in different ways of writing, going a bit against traditional norm of writing. So co-writing, more collective author ethnography, poetic writing. So if you like doing poets, that might be a place for you, but also fictional writings. And if you want to receive some input on some of your ideas, so feel free to share it with Sarah and Christine up front. And then you will get some feedback during the session. The deadline is 4th of April for that, and it actually is within a month's time. So we have some fun events happening fairly soon. And then we also have another lovely event. Ilaria also wrote a book on researching and writing differently. And that event is in June, 6th of June. And she will also talk about doing things differently with brilliant people she invited to it. And it says, in a candid conversation. I look forward to seeing what that means in practice. So yeah, these are just some of the events. If you feel you want to contribute to the conversation, also you, Steve. I'm sure we're also happy to have just from the publisher aspect a little, gathering, so people can come and ask you questions if they have their ideas. Maybe you can have something also like that and select out some brilliant ideas that might be able to get a book out. Drop us an email and we definitely can organize something. But overall, thank you so much, everyone, for being here. I hope you enjoyed it. Please reach out to people in here if you love to connect. And yeah, we hope to see you soon at a different event. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you very much.
you.
Thank
Take
Thanks
care.
for organizing.
Thank you.
you.
Bye.
You're
Have
welcome.
a beautiful day.